Okay, hey guys, welcome to another tutorial. We're going to be working with landscapes within UDK. Just following up with the foliage tutorial that I did last week, where we learned how to use the foliage tool and how to paint, foliage on, a surface, be it static meshes, you can do terrains, you can do landscapes, you can paint on all of those. But today we're going to work on showing you how to use the landscape tool, which is right here. It's the mountain with the L on it. The other mountain is just the normal terrain. I'll show you how to do that some other time. It can be another tutorial. For right now, we're going to do landscape. And when you have no landscapes in the scene, you're given this normal landscape editor here. And it wants you to create a landscape, either by giving it dimensions for a height map to just lay out flat, or if you did create a height map in Photoshop, it'll allow you to basically import that in. And with height maps, it's a black and white grayscale map. Usually with UDK, it has to be a power of 2, so like 512 by 512, 1024 by 1024, things like that. And then where black is the minimum amount of height, and then white is the maximum height, and then the grayscale being different levels between those. For this instance, I don't have a height map created, so we're just going to create one from scratch. So we need to start here in height map size. Let's do 256 by 256. Hit enter. And you're given basically the component size and sections per component. You can change those if you would like. Not really 200% on what each thing is. I know for per component, each section, you can have it as 1 per section or 4 sections within that component. And I believe with quads, that just lowers how many actual quads are in that section, so how many triangles are basically drawn in there. So we'll leave everything as their default, and we're going to hit Create Landscape. And there we go, our landscape is right here. Relatively flat, has no material on it. Again, we're not going to do the material in this episode. I'll show you how to make that material in another one. Right now, I'm just going to show you how to edit the landscape, how things work. So first and foremost, the letter T on the keyboard, that toggles the visibility of a landscape and a terrain. So if you don't see yours right away, hitting the letter T should pop in for you. Otherwise, Control H. Well, if you hit H and then Control H, that's hide and unhiding objects if you have them selected. But for right now, we got our landscape going. And then if we do wireframe mode, that's our quads. And you can actually check each component. If you go into the component tool right here, you can see each component. So right now, this is all just like one component here. Let's go back in here. Right now we're in unlit mode. So let's go into lit mode. Let's create a light. And let's just make it a dominant directional light just so we have it. Angle it a bit. And then I'm going to change the scale of it just so it's big. And then drag it up just so it's not in our way. Now back in the landscape editor, we got a couple options. Right now we only have this height map option, which is our terrain here, our landscape. But eventually, when you add materials here, you're going to be adding them in the layers option, and you'll see layers added here where the word height map is. You'll see each, material layer, be it snow, dirt, grass, moss, sand, whatever it is, whatever's in your material. You'll see those there as options you can click on. But whenever you have the height map option selected here, like we do, everything you do in the paint tools will affect the terrain itself. So if you hit Control and hold it down, left click, you create a little mound. And then depending on the tool strength, you may get something higher up. And then if you keep clicking on it, it'll get bigger and bigger. And then if you hit Control, Shift, and then left click, it lowers it. So now we got some valleys. And that's just the generic paint tool. So that goes up and down, basically. And then once you have, a rough idea of what you want, so say you want some valleys like we have right here, the next tool is the smooth tool. So basically just smooth things out. So if you hold down Control, left click, you start to smooth things out. So like obviously for paths that you want players to walk on, you want them to be nice and smooth so players don't get stuck. And then obviously the stronger the tool, for detailed, smooth, and the tool strength. That's how it'll lower things. So things are getting really smooth right now. And then if you hold down Control Shift as well, it does the same thing. There's no differences in that tool. So that's the smooth tool. And then the flatten tool, I'll show you what that is. Let me just create some mounds here. So the flatten tool basically levels out whatever height you're on at the moment. So say we're up here, Control, left click, and drag, you'll match that height. Whereas if you're down here, so say we're down here, left click, drag, as soon as you get to a place that's not the same, you'll start leveling out too. And then you can kind of create plateaus here. So right now you have like a nice little hill with a ramp slope on it. And then you can flatten things out a little bit as well. Kind of helps you create mountains and hills, things like that. So the flatten tool is pretty useful. Once you have a height that you like, you can just start matching it and then, you know, smoothing it out. Things like that. The next tool here is Erosion. So basically with Erosion, what that does is basically when rock is exposed to, you know, heat, it erodes. So you can kind of simulate erosion within mountains if you want to get more natural landscaping. So let's go ahead. There's this little mound here. When you hit erode, you know, it does it pretty strongly just because the tool strength's up. So if we lower that a little bit, as well as lower the threshold and the iteration number, you'll see the erosion take place a little quick, not quicker, or it would be less, basically less intense, because basically erosion takes place over time. So that's why you have iteration number. So that's basically over time, you know, how many iterations of the erosion has taken place. And then obviously tool strength will enhance that as well. And then you can just smooth things out. So it's really useful, again, just creating natural landscapes. So let's create another mound here. So we got this tall little mountain here. Our next tool, it's a hydraulic erosion. So it's basically the same idea, except it's water. You know what water does to rock over periods of time. Kind of breaks it down. Rain amount, sediment capsule. You know, it's all little details in how the mountain and the rock breaks. Right now you can't really see much just because there's no texture on it. But you can kind of see how it kind of smooths things out. And then you can just erode it a little bit. Smooth it out. And you got yourself a little mountain. So these two in conjunction, just normal erosion and then hydraulic erosion, can be worked together to create interesting, realistic looking landscapes, including mountains and hills, things like that. And then lastly here in the paint tools, we got the noise tool. So this basically generates, as the name suggests, just random noise in the terrain. So right now you can't really see what it's doing that much, but if you increase the tool strength, you start seeing it just creates random stuff. And the noise scale. So we got random noise that you can then, you know, smooth out. And it helps create randomness in the environment because, you know, obviously nature, it's kind of random. You don't see too many things that are man-made in nature, so randomness is always a good thing. But you want to make sure your randomness also makes a little bit of sense. Just because there are laws in nature, even if things are random, they have some rules applied to them. So those are the basic paint tools that you have available. Once you do have materials in there, you'll create one landscape material. I'm going to show you this in a different tutorial, but once you have a landscape material, you can have basically as many as you want in terms of just texture layers. So again, like mountains, they'll have dirt, they'll have gravel, they'll have maybe snow, grass, things like that. You can have a bunch of different materials in there. And then once you have them layered here, they're going to be listed underneath height maps. So you'll have grass, you'll have dirt, you'll have mountain, like rock, things like that. Once you left click on them and they're highlighted, the only tool that you'll be able to really use is the paint tool. And then from there, you know, you'll paint the actual texture wherever you want. And given the tool strength, you can paint it lightly or paint it sharply, things like that. But then that's really all you can really do with the landscape. It's pretty straightforward. There's minimum tools for painting, but if you know what you're doing, you can make really convincing landscapes with it. And then the next section of the tool here is the component tools. So right now we have this one component here, but then you can also add components. So if you just left click, he's like boom, you just got a new component here. But you can also remove components. So left click, click on it. You got that basically removed. But you can also, and then basically you can actually have them streaming from level to level and things like that. Then also you can change the brush or that size of it. You can change the tool strength of it, things of that nature. But let's go ahead and create a new landscape here. Let's create that. May freeze my computer just because, but we'll see if it generates it here. May take a little bit of time. There we go. And now the one we did here, you can basically start deleting options here. So changing the brush size. If you just, with this one selected, the X right here, you can actually remove components. If you left click and hold down Control, it'll remove them. So you can start removing them. And you can also, with this one right here, left click, add them back in. Things like that. And you can also still paint. You can also smooth, things like that. And it just doesn't look too well just because there's no material on it right now. And then the region tools, this is what I'm not too sure of. I think this just allows you to highlight. Yeah, if you hold down Control and left click, it just starts highlighting your region here for you. And then if you have a region selected, you can't paint over it. See right now, it's painting around it but not on it. And then you can basically copy that data, that region data. You can also basically toggle the visibility of a certain range here. And then you can clear it, things like that. That's just if you want to work on a particular region. You don't want it to change as you're changing other things, which can, it can happen. And then from here you have brush fall off, and then actual brush size up here, and then the fall off basically changes how you'll manipulate things. So let me go back to painting. So the fall off here. So if you have no fall off, it's just going to basically have hard edges there for you. Whereas the more you have of a fall off, the more rounded it's going to be. So it's just depending on what you want. Typically is how you'll have your terrain set up. And then you can create another landscape. You can have more than one in there. But then if you just delete the landscape, you'll lose everything there. Just because I created a 1x1, it's going to be near here. So there's my one landscape. I think since it's 1x1, you're not going to see it well. But once all landscapes are removed, you'll get the default editor again. And that'll allow you to do whatever we did in the beginning there, create one from scratch, or if you have a height map, import it. So that's basically the landscape tool. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy to use. So definitely check out this video as well as the foliage video, and stay tuned for when we create a material for the landscape, as well as I'll show you how to use the terrain editor. Pretty simple, pretty much the same tool, maybe has a little bit less limitation, or more limitations I should say. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little bit. Definitely like this video, share it, subscribe if you haven't. Definitely check out other tutorials for UDK and Unreal Engine 4, as well as check out Radial Impact. There's going to be a download link in the description. Check it out. It's free. Go ahead and play it. And then definitely check out those videos as well on how we created Radial Impact from scratch. But that's it for now, guys. I do appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.